Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3931. Today's date is March 9, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:20 p.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right, the question is, what small daily habit would serve as a proof to myself that I am becoming that person? Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? A couple of days ago, I read a book, Atomic Habit, by James Clear. Really amazing book. Highly recommend to you to read that book. I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. How do I do that? By asking question to myself. So I went to ChatGPT, says that ki I read this book, suggests me kind of like 20 questions so that I would supposed to be implement those questions. So I was supposed to implement those values in my life and this, that, and that. So ChatGPT kind of like recommend me those 20 questions, and this is one of those questions. Now regarding about this question, the question says that what small daily habit would serve as a proof to myself as I am becoming that particular person. What exactly is this question? The question is kind of like a bit more kind of like a simply stretch a lot. Okay, the question is actually about that ki you want to become a particular person that you wanted to be in the future. What kind of like a small habit that you are kind of like a doing daily so that you will become that particular person? What kind of like a small habit that I'm doing will kind of like a help me to become that particular person? Okay, first of all is that what is actually particular person? What kind of like a person that I wanted to become? Well, technically is this thing that ki I wanted to become so many things that I'm not really sure there is a kind of like a specific word for that. Like basically is this thing, I want to become a pilot. So pilot is a very specific, unique category of the people. Okay, yeah. It doesn't really confuse anyone. If you want to become pilot, then what should you supposed to do is that okay, you have to kind of like do the training, flight training. Okay, yeah, do the simulation, understanding the navigation, understanding the longitude, latitudes, things like that. Understand the kind of like assembly, all the kind of like a flight controls and things and that. Okay, learning all those things, practice all those things every single day, that eventually help you to become that particular person that you wanted to be as a pilot, right? Yeah, but from my point of perspective, what I'm kind of like actually doing to become that particular person. So let's just kind of like simply step by step. Okay, yeah, I want to become a YouTuber. Okay, basically I am a YouTuber. I am actually uploading my content on YouTube platform, social media platform, YouTube, Instagram platform. Okay, so basically it's this thing, if I'm gonna say that I am a YouTuber, or if I want to become a YouTuber, okay, yeah, then what kind of like a small habit that I'm trying to become that particular person? Well, I am actually uploading my content every single day. From last couple of days, I was actually uploading almost like a uh, 6 post. So I'm actually uploading almost like a 6 reel. Okay, yeah, which is really good. I'm actually creating those pieces of content by AI, so it kind of like simply improve my quality as well as quantity. Okay, so it is really good. Okay, yeah, and I'm seeing kind of like a result. I am getting almost like a 10,000 views per day, which is kind of like a mind-boggling, because I haven't really kind of like simply get that many views. Right now I have almost like a 1,000 941 follower, which is kind of like really insane. Not really that much, but kind of like something competitively previous, which is kind of like a far much more better. Okay. So if I want to become a YouTuber, I should supposed to be upload my content every single day, and that's what I'm doing with that. Okay, so that make me a kind of like a particular person that I wanted to become, right? Yeah. Now, another thing, I wanted to start. I wanted to kind of like a startup. I wanted to do my startup. I wanted to start my business. I wanted to establish my business and things and that and that. So for that particular thing, for that particular person, or for that particular like as a businessman, okay, yeah, what kind of like a small habit that you are doing that eventually you will become that particular person? uh well, first of all is that key business means what kind of like a business that you are trying to do. I wanted to launch my application, okay, yeah, name as an artifact. In this application, people will kind of like simply record their thoughts and things like that. It's a kind of like a people will kind of like simply like every single day people wrote the diary, okay, journaling and things and that and that. Instead of journaling, I'm kind of like a recording. Like people will kind of like a went to my application, and they will kind of like a talk about what is actually happened throughout the day, what is their ambition, goal, and things and that and that. But why does people will gonna do that? Yeah, actually that's a kind of like a really good question. Okay, why does people will gonna do that? Is because of people wanted to do. What is actually one thing that I'm kind of like offering to the people is the privacy. Is that key? Like let me tell you one thing. It's a kind of like an application where people will kind of like record everything what is actually happened, and people would kind of like listen other people's artifact, means whatever they are kind of like a talk and things like that. It's a audio based platform, not any video based, audio based platform. Another beauty thing about this my application is that key, it's a privacy. I mean, no one knows who is that particular person. Okay, yeah, even if I am a kind of like a particular person says my name and things and that, my application is powered by AI, which kind of like eliminate all those nouns, okay, yeah, your name, your district, where you live and things like that. Just kind of like assembly allow you to tell your story regarding about what is actually happened and things and that, and people will gonna listen. Okay, it's a kind of like assembly YouTube, okay, yeah, but people will kind of like a drop their kind of like a thought process, what is actually they've been through and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now I already kind of like mentioned regarding about my application and things and that. Okay, yeah. So this is the particular person that I wanted to become. Okay, yeah. So what kind of like a small habit that I'm doing to become that particular person? Well, I am kind of like recording my artifact. Okay, yeah. I'm been kind of like a recording artifact for last 10 year. I started this thing in the February 2015. Every single day I'm kind of like a recording artifact. Okay, yeah, which will kind of like eventually help me to how to establish my business. Okay, another thing is that key recording artifact about building my application and things, it's just an empty word. Obviously you need action. What kind of like action that you are kind of like trying to do to build that application? Well, that's the kind of like a one thing that I understand. My business is not about a kind of like a building the application. No, I could build the application, and building application is not really that much complicated. It is a complicated, okay, yeah, but I think that ki it's not the kind of like a biggest complicated thing. I mean, it's not the kind of like a biggest kind of like a problem. Sooner or later, I will gonna make this application. The biggest problem is that ki this is the new territory artifact. Okay, why it's new territory is because of that he most of people never really knew what is actually artifact. I am kind of like doing this thing for almost like a last decade, and I'm kind of like seen a lot of improvement inside of me. The person that I'm trying to talking right now is a completely different that person I was. Okay, so basically is this thing na, it add so much amount of value inside of me. And not just me, it's just like that ki every book, every scientific discovery kind of like a represent that ki yes, journaling and kind of like a self-reflection is a kind of like a very much necessary that you could develop yourself even more better and things and that. Okay, so basically this thing I wanted to do this thing. It's really like it felt really good. It's a very kind of like a difficult to explain. Let me tell you one thing. Okay, is that ki when you are kind of like a going through very health situation, your day-to-day life is a kind of like a really not so good. Okay, yeah, you have a lot of stress regarding about your career, things and that. Everyone has that thing. But the problem is that na, ki you wanted to kind of like express your thoughts, that ki what you've been through and things and that. And sometimes you don't really find any kind of like a particular person. Until and unless if you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, that is okay, but still it is kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki those particular person will supposed to be listen to you, they will understand you, things and that. And sometimes now I realize that ki when we are kind of like a going through very horrible situation, we don't need a advice, we just need to kind of like a blunt it out and things like that. There are so much kind of like stuff inside of us that we just want to blunt it out. Okay, yeah, and that's what my application comes in. You just kind of like came here and just blunted out everything that you've been through and things and that. Okay, and this is what I'm trying to. This is my application will kind of like solve the problem of kind of like assembly people, and when they kind of like do this thing, they will understand even like it's a kind of like a thing. I don't know how do I supposed to explain. It's a kind of like a thing that key when you have so much amount of stress, it's kind of like a pressure cooker. Okay, yeah. Every day chasing your career, things and that, you get so much cooked up, stress and things and whatnot. My application is kind of like a let me cool down. Okay, yeah. Just express everything what you've been through and it definitely gonna work out. It definitely kind of like a make you much more better person. It will kind of like a somebody giving you much more better value regarding about that. Everything. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, my problem is that ki I wanted to convince this thought process. The whatever I try to tell you, I wanted to convince this thought process. How do I supposed to convince that? By telling them? Well, probably is this thing that ki people will kind of like suddenly see hundreds of me who kind of like are telling them ki like do this kind of like change your life, do this change your life and things and that. And I am kind of like a became one of those people, right? So why does they kind of like somebody choose me, or why does they kind of like somebody convince them, why they kind of like convince that they should supposed to record their artifact? No, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing na ki instead of kind of like convincing them directly, I should supposed to be convince them indirectly. Now what's the indirectly? uh okay, like let's just say that ki I make a movie. Okay, yeah, and I kind of like said this is the movie that I make, watch this. You probably will watch it or not. You might not gonna watch that particular movie. Like your possible chances to watch that movie would be 100 out of maybe 60%. Okay, yeah. But if I'm gonna say this thing, this movie is legit good, I love it, really great, like watch this video, watch this movie. Oh my god, I ate a bug. Oh, I ate a bug. Let me pause. Okay. Okay, I'm good. Okay. Suggestion. If you're recording artifact, you might gonna eat bug. So talk cautiously. Probably. I'm not really sure but kind of like so put your mobile phone in front of your mouth so that whatever it should supposed to be, it will kind of like a block by the mobile phone. Maybe it might work. But I realized that while recording Artifact, I ate multiple bugs. Why? Usually I kind of like simply record Artifact on the rooftop while walking and things and that after I eat my dinner. It does not. Whatever. Okay, yeah. So the question, yeah, I was kind of like talking about indirect, yeah, like basically a direct way to kind of like telling them, it will not gonna convince. Okay, yeah. So I should supposed to be kind of like simply convince them by indirectly. And how do I supposed to convince them indirectly? By kind of like simply provide my artifact. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this saying whatever the artifact that I created throughout all those decade of artifact, I should supposed to be upload on YouTube platform, and it is actually available on YouTube platform too. By the way, you are kind of like listening on this on YouTube platform on this my channel. Okay, yeah. So this is the way that people will understand, okay, this is the artifact, this particular dude who's kind of like a recording this artifact for last 10 years, and this is kind of like a stuff. Okay, yeah. When they kind of like watch all those videos and artifact, and they will kind of like see, they will kind of like realize that ki this particular person kind of like been through very hell situation from like this, that and that and that. Like I don't know how to supposed to explain this particular stuff, but let me tell you one thing now is that ki when you like when like let's just say that ki a particular artist who kind of like sing a song really well, okay, yeah, you might kind of like judge him, and you will kind of like give them 10 out of 9. Okay, yeah, because he sing really good and things and that. But this is a completely new guy, completely stranger for him, and you kind of like simply judging him regarding about his kind of like a singing. Okay, yeah. But this is the kind of like situation number one. Situation number two is that ki when you are kind of like know that particular person backstory, what he been through, things and that, so you have completely connected with the emotional attachment with that particular person. And when you are kind of like emotional attachment with that particular person, it kind of like add advantage for that particular person. Okay, yeah. So even if that particular person might not sing that much properly, still people will kind of like give them judgment, maybe 10 out of 9. Okay, yeah. So does that mean that ki I am that kind of like a particular person, like I'm kind of like sharing my artifact on YouTube platform, probably I'm kind of like telling them I am a kind of like a victim card, like am I playing the victim card over here? No, it's not. Okay, yeah, it's somewhat something yes, it's somewhat something no. Okay, yeah. Because like if you look at from that point of perspective, am I playing victim card? Probably yes. Okay, yeah. But it's not just one thing, it's a kind of like a thing that na ki artifact is a very unique in itself. Like let me tell you one thing, YouTube are meant to be kind of like a watch videos, but I didn't like kind of like a mention a video, I mentioned a artifact. Okay, yeah. Now artifact is a kind of like a very different thing. Okay, yeah. Means like that na ki like basically what is actually artifact is I'm not really sure. It's a kind of like simply a raw unfiltered thing. People will kind of like record their kind of like a raw unfiltered thing that is called artifact. When you say video, a video means a typical video, whatever the people would gonna say with backed by kind of like a simply story, with the kind of like a simply the thought process, like it kind of like simply backed by the like what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na, it's a kind of like a new form of territory. I'm not really sure what exactly is this thing. I name as an artifact. Why? Because it's a kind of like a blunt, it's unfiltered, it's raw, it's completely is your thoughts. So it always be a messy, it always be not right, it always be kind of like a simply unstructured, it always be kind of like a simply just like a like messy, right? And that is what it is. Like it's a we are human and we kind of like a think like that way, and it's not kind of like considered as a YouTube, or it's not considered as a kind of like a YouTube video, because in the YouTube videos or any kind of like assembly things has a proper structure or information which kind of like a backed by the real evidence or things that and that. But it's a kind of like a artifact is a kind of like a raw thought process. Okay, people will kind of like simply understand, okay, this is a kind of like a category. Okay, let me kind of like give you kind of like a perspective. Okay, yeah, the main question is that why does people will kind of like simply record the artifact. It's because of that they will kind of like resonate the same thought process. Like example is this thing, the particular person kind of like simply is this thing opening artifact, and he was kind of like listening someone artifact name, someone listening, he was kind of like a someone artifact. By the way, my artifact I already mentioned, there is no name at all, just a kind of like random username. Like my real name is a Saurabh Bauthare, but basically in the profile name should supposed to be a Prozac 1943. So probably is this thing that who is a Prozac 1943, you will not gonna know. Okay, so you are kind of like listening to Prozac 1943 artifact. Okay, so basically this thing, imagine a particular person who's kind of like listening the someone artifact, and he was kind of like talking about what he been through. He was kind of like talking about his breakup and things and that and that and that. Okay, and then he realized that dude, I also kind of like went through that same situation. So basically I would gonna talk like, have you ever kind of like experienced that in the kind of like assembly in the kind of like a community of the people, the one particular person kind of like been through health situation, other person kind of like feel the same thing too, so they also wanted to talk about that particular thing, eager to want to talk about things. Like we also say, dude, like this is the same exact stuff actually happened with us and things and that and that. Okay, so this is what exactly artifact. Okay, yeah, you are completely unrestricted, you are kind of like say everything about what exactly happened, but make sure that you will not going to include your name or your details. Okay, because if you include your name detail, it will kind of like erase or wipe out. Okay, so yeah, so kind of like tell your story, what is actually happening and things and that and that and that. Okay, yeah, and people will at the beginning they might not gonna convince at the beginning, but throughout the time they will gonna convince. Okay, yeah. So basically this is a kind of like a business idea, and I wanted to start up that thing. So what kind of like stuff that I'm doing every single day to kind of like somebody convincing them to record artifact. Well, I am kind of like writing the book, my artifact episode, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. These are kind of like books, are kind of like somebody representation of what I've been through and things and that, what is actually my thought process, what is actually my ambition, goal and things. People will kind of like read, people will understand, and people will gonna say, oh, this artifact is kind of like really good. Probably is this thing, while they will kind of like read my book, they will might be resonate, and they might kind of like record the artifact even more. Sometimes no, kind of like simply you have to build the trust, and you have to continue building that trust. Yeah, continue building that trust. So yes, okay, so basically this thing, this is what I'm doing to kind of like simply making that book available, YouTube videos. Okay, yeah, easily kind of like you will find all my artifact on YouTube platform, which is publicly available. Okay, yeah, so yes, okay. So another thing is that but there are kind of like so many things that really required me to become that particular person. So many things, what like basically this is in communication, language, how do I supposed to interact with the people. And I'm not even talking about the business point of perspective. In the business point of perspective, there are so many things are actually mattered, like how do I supposed to make the application, how is the process actually happened, management, everything. There are so many stuff is actually happened back and through too. But still is this thing that key, one of the biggest challenge for the artifact is that convincing people to the record artifact. That's the only thing. If I convince them, 90% of the problem is actually solved. 10% problem are kind of like a technical problem, management problem, things and that and that. And I think that na ki for that particular purpose, I build kind of like a team. I build the structure regarding about how the things works and things and that and that, and it will gonna work, follow, and everything will gonna run. Okay, yeah. Like as a kind of like somebody as the chairman of the company, you should supposedly focus on kind of like a how to improve your business, not to kind of like simply focus on kind of like a management and things and that, because those are like a new innovation. Okay, my approach towards my building application to kind of like how do I supposed to new innovation, how do I supposed to provide value to the people who record the artifact. Okay, yeah, because when I provide the value, they will kind of like a really really feel really good while recording artifact, and they will kind of like continue making recording artifact. Okay, yeah, and basically is this thing, ma'am, the advantage that you're gonna feel with the artifact throughout the time. Like basically is this thing that you have to do this thing for every single day, and then you will kind of like getting that much amount of value. But still there are so many problems with that too. Why? Because of that key privacy issues and things and that. Another thing is that key government restriction. I don't know, even if the people wanted to do this thing, but government will not gonna let them do. Probably there are a lot of things I have to be kind of like a handle that thing. But probably is this thing na ki I am not actually thinking about that long-term point of perspective. Like I'm actually thinking from long-term point of perspective, but I'm not actually thinking about that ki like what I realized throughout my entire period of lifetime is that ki make sure your day as much as productive as you can. Yeah, you have a goal, I have a goal too. Okay, yeah, I'm actually focusing on my goal, but goal is actually happening in the future na. Okay, yeah, and why do I supposed to kind of like a focus on future instead of kind of like I should supposed to focus on today? So that's what I'm saying. Okay, yeah, is that ki make sure that ki you have to solve the problem for today. Tomorrow you have to solve the problem too, but you shouldn't supposed to be focused. You shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a invest today's time to solve tomorrow's problem, because it doesn't really make sense. Why that tomorrow will never gonna come? It's really essential that ki whatever the time that you have, invest that time to solve today's problem. Okay, yeah, think about the tomorrow's problem too. It's not really that ki not think about that, but kind of like a think about tomorrow's problem and try to solve that problem too by the small investment of things and that. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing na ki I realized that ki when I launch my application, people will not gonna convince to record artifact. That is definitely gonna true. For at least like a 5 year, I will not gonna earn any kind of like a single amount of money from this kind of like a small application. So throughout this period of time, like a 5 year, how do I supposed to run the application without money? Okay, so for that particular purpose, I am kind of like investing money every single month, 1,000 rupees on SIP. Right now, this is the kind of like a most I could do. But whatever the money that I would gonna earn from the content creation or book writing, I will gonna invest that much amount of money on kind of like surviving my startup for at least like a 5 year. Okay, yeah, whatever the money that we're gonna have, I should supposed to be kind of like make sure that ki I would kind of like give them people salary who are the people who are, and kind of like maintain my startup for at least like a 5 year. Game will gonna start after the 5 year. And one of the biggest question that I try to tell you is this thing that ki convince people to record artifact. That's the only thing. If I convince them, obviously 90% of the problem we're gonna solve. Basically is this thing na, if I like the question is actually about that ki what kind of like a daily habit that you have to become that particular person. Well, there are so many things. Like if I'm gonna say what kind of like a daily habit that I'm doing to kind of like become that particular person. First habit, I'm recording artifact every single day. I'm reading my book from kind of like assembly from beginning of this year. Okay, yeah, when I read in the book, I will understand the concept, people, thought process, how do I supposed to convince and things and that and that. Okay, yeah, I also kind of like play brain training games. Okay, yeah, Lumosity, Brilliant, Duolingo, Elevate. These are kind of like application I spend almost like a 15 minute, which is kind of like a simply add so much amount of values and things and that. Also, I'm kind of like a spending time on content creation, because content creation is also really essential. Another thing is that I spend rest of the time on kind of like a book writing, which will kind of like a done maybe kind of like a within a month, and then after that I will kind of like a started focusing on building my application. So yeah, these are kind of like a habits that I have, that I'm kind of like a doing. And yes, it doesn't kind of like a make me the person that I wanted to be, but it's kind of like an initial start. Okay, yeah, it kind of, I'm not really sure that key what kind of like a qualities or kind of like a really required me to become that particular person. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of like a simply making sure that today is kind of like a much more productive than yesterday. Okay, yeah, so yeah, I'm actually focusing on action instead of kind of like a thinking about future and things and that. Problem will gonna happen today, problem will gonna happen tomorrow. It's really essential me to solve problem for today. Tomorrow, tomorrow's problem I will kind of like a solve today too, but small step probably. So this is kind of like some stuff. All right, so this is the kind of like a something, the kind of like a habit that I serve to prove myself to become that particular person. All right, this is it, this is it. Thank you.